It is Solidarity Wednesdays, and we'll be joined momentarily by Nomiki Konst of the Nomiki Show. And as always, we'll be joined by Dr. Carl Mack discussing Black history, what happened today in Black history. So much to go. I want to start this morning just a little bit differently while we get ready for Solidarity Wednesdays. I want to start with Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. Now, those may be two names that you don't know immediately because you may not be as mired into the inside politics the way I am. Joe Rogan is a very popular podcaster with Spotify. I think he had a contract of about $150 million to go on Spotify and to just, sit there and talk. Do what I do, basically. So, good on him for being able to just sit down and talk and make $150 million a year. The problem is that he has been on the leading lines of the misinformation in this pandemic, but he's also on the leading lines of this pseudo anti-wokeness movement that fancies all white people in this country, particularly white conservative men. Let's be clear. Going forward through the rest of this episode, when I say white people, I'm really talking about wealthy white conservative men and all of the ancillary people who love them and support them. But at the core of it, what Joe Rogan and this entire movement. Now, if you need to connect this to something bigger, you have to understand that the way conservatism gets away with what it gets away with in this country is 100% by the fact that they have a media apparatus that can take people with the skill set of a sloth and make them famous and rich and put them up there to say all of the asinine and idiotic things that they wouldn't say themselves, they being the oligarchs. There's plenty of rich people in this country who know that these idiots on Fox News are complete and total morons. They know that they're lying. They know that they are engaging in the highest level of propaganda. Joe Rogan is just an extension of that. Joe Rogan is more of the bro portion of that conservative movement. Here's what I want to play. I have two clips of him. The first clip is really talking about Michael Eric Dyson. Michael Eric Dyson is, for those of you who don't know, I hope I don't have to explain every single character, but Michael Eric Dyson is a scholar, an intellectual, a Black intellectual who has written many books and been on the front line of many issues for as long as I can remember. They have a problem with this man. Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan have a problem with Michael Eric Dyson in general, but more specifically in the context of the conversation about race in this country. I think I gave you enough information to play the clip. Let's take a listen to Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson as they attack Michael Eric Dyson, a Black man, as apparently not being Black enough because, well, they had nothing else to say about this intellectual other than he isn't Black enough. Let's take a look at it.
Hard to sort out. The climate change one is a weird one. So that one,
that's because there's no such thing as climate, right? Climate and everything are the same word. And that's what bothers me about the climate change types. It's like, this is something that bothers me about it technically. It's like, well, climate is about everything. So, okay. But your models aren't based on everything. Your models are based on warming. A set number of variables. Yeah. So that means you've reduced the variables, which are everything, to that set. Well, how did you decide which set of variables to include in the equation if it's about everything? And that's not just a criticism. That's like, if it's about everything, your models aren't right. Because your models do not and cannot model everything.
What do you mean by everything when you say, depending on who you ask, either you're a voice of reason and rationality and personal responsibility, or you're a voice of intolerance and bigotry and anger and hateful.
Sexual oppression.
What did Michael
prejudice.
Eric Dyson call you? A mean angry white man?
And a mean, angry white man. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
You're not mean at all.
Yeah.
That's what's dumb about that statement. It's you're not mean at all.
I am white. Actually, that's a lie, too. I'm kind of tan. And he was actually not black.
If you're tan,
he was
what
sort
the
of
fuck
brown.
am I? because I'm darker than you.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but neither of us are white.
Well, I'm Italian.
And
mostly.
he was brown, not black.
Well, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's really
the
weird.
Black and white thing is so strange because
like
the shades are so...
tan and brown.
There's such a spectrum of shades of people. Unless you're talking to someone who is like 100% African from the darkest place where they're not wearing any clothes all day and they've developed all that melanin to protect themselves from the sun. You know, even the term black is weird. And when you use it for people that are literally my color, it becomes very strange.
Yeah.
You know,
This is true. So you were asking,
white people, I need you to send something better than those two guys to the national conversation. The national discourse is not represented in its totality when you guys send Neanderthals dressed in their Monopoly suits to sit there and prevaricate or pontificate rather about the colorism. I'm going to get into that story a little bit later. I'm going to wait till Dr. Mack and Rebecca Zor and Georgia Ford get here. We're going to tackle that a little bit more. In a minute, we'll be joined by Nomiki Konst, and we're going to be discussing allyship, because in the forefront of this conversation really is, how do we work together with people who otherwise, you know, this system, Fox News, is a perfect machine to make sure that poor white people and working class white people vote against their best interest. It's literally, I think that is in the secret job description at Fox News, for you to get people, white people, poor white people specifically, to vote against their own best interest. This is all a part of one massive machine. And in order for us to stop things like another January 6th from occurring, in order for us to stop things for like another Donald Trump, not even Donald Trump himself, but the next Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States, we must absolutely form a team of people who have enough influence and power to fight back against these machines. And here's what I'm saying. While you personally may not have ever heard of Jordan Peterson, and you may never ever seen this episode or this clip of what we're talking about, millions of people watch and listen to this every single day. Okay? Millions, to the tune of Joe Rogan having a $150 million contract with Spotify. If you have Spotify, you just sponsored the content that we just listened to. Now, that said, I want to bring in my sister from another Mr. Nomiki Konst of the Nomiki Show. Nomiki, I know it's got a, I know you're not a fan of either of those two guys. So I hate to have you here on behalf of the white delegation in the middle of this conversation, but we got to do, I mean, these guys, they're not working with a full bag of integrity or intelligence.
Yes. I mean, I remember about a year and a half ago, it's hard in pandemic timeline, of course, a year and a half ago, I remember folks were saying, Rogan's really great. And of course, he endorsed Bernie Sanders, but he started to get a little slippery about a year and a half ago in a more aggressive way. And I paused and I said, we as a movement, and I love Bernie in so many ways, but, campaigns are very fast. And I'm not expecting that Bernie Sanders was watching Joe Rogan or listening to Joe Rogan. I just expect he listened to his advisors, which is what, most presidential candidates should do, because they shouldn't be sitting there watching his 3-hour episodes. But what was important was he said, he's going to help Rogan is going to help bring in folks that are disaffected. Well, I believe that Joe Rogan was really trying to pull in progressive Bernie folks who watch and listen to, whatever Bernie says into his audience, because, you can't have it both ways. You can't have Bernie Sanders and say you're a progressive and you believe in Medicare for all, and then have Jordan Peterson on, and Alex Jones is a regular on his show. And I'm so happy that Neil Young used his power, his labor, essentially, if we're going to really break it down, as leverage, because Neil Young is obviously an extraordinarily famous and well listened to musician over the last, 5 decades, 6 decades. And comparing that to a $150 contract with Joe Rogan, is it really worth it? And my guess is probably other musicians are going to come in and say the same thing, because it's just not worth it at the end of the day.
You're talking about the legendary Neil Young, who is pulling his music from Spotify because Joe Rogan has this massively lucrative $150 million contract with Spotify. And it's not just the first portion of the clip we played, Nomiki, was the climate portion, right? Which I don't want to dismiss that portion because it's just as important when you considered, well, you know, it's spring here in the winter in the South. My thing is that there's so much money behind misinformation in this country. It's almost as if people like yourself or myself or anyone, like look at organizers, look at the people who actually go out here and do all the best work at the bottom of the financial structure here, while morons and propagandists like Joe Rogan literally are at the top of propaganda mountain here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and I'm glad that we're finally in a space where folks are starting to see it because of the pandemic. It's almost like they overplayed their hands. Or maybe they didn't. They knew that these are the folks that they were able to collect along the way of spewing misinformation, because this is obviously not the first piece of misinformation he's spread. He's been doing this for many years.
That's right.
Some people have checked it. I mean, he's been aggressively anti-trans. He's used cancel culture in a way to sow a divide. You know, he seems like he's some sort of like muscle head. You know, I think a lot of these folks are like, oh, they're so dumb, frankly. Sometimes they say things and you're like, they're just dumb, but they're not dumb. I actually think they're very sophisticated and they're trying to appeal to folks, everyday folks. They want to relate. They don't want to be wonky. They don't want to have, books all around them. They don't want to be, professorial, although Jordan Peterson does have that aspect to himself. They want to be relatable. And so they use that and they prey on insecurities just the way Donald Trump did. Just the way Donald Trump did, and so many leaders in the past.
That's right.
So he says, it's cancel culture that's making you feel insecure in your life. Not that it's really about, I don't know, the economic conditions. And then he has Elon Musk and he says, this guy is a national treasure. Elon Musk is a national treasure. It's like, how could... This is a strategy.
Well, to be fair to the morning show, I found out yesterday that one of my co-hosts on the morning show actually likes Elon Musk, even though I feel like Elon Musk is Lex Luthor with hair plugs, but I digress. But your point remains. I just
have to have a little conversation.
I wanted to put that on Brother Matt because he's coming in a minute. And but everything else that you're saying, Nomiki, is so right. I actually want to play one more clip, and this is a short 30-second clip of Kid Rock's new song. And I think this kind of embodies what you're saying. This is a new song that was released by Kid Rock yesterday. Side note, the comments on YouTube are turned off. That lets you know he's not proud of his work because the comments are turned off. Here's a song of him attacking Joe Biden, Anthony Fauci, attacking the COVID response, and I don't even know how to describe it, but this is what all the conservatives are rallying behind this morning. It's trending #1 on Twitter. Here's a little clip of Kid Rock singing something. Here we go. We the People is the name of the song. Go ahead.
Wear your mask, take your pills. Now a whole generation's mentally ill. Man, Fauci. But COVID's near, it's coming to town. We gotta act quick, shut our borders down. Joe Biden does, the media embraces. Big Doc does it and they call him racist. We the people. Let's go, Brandon. We the people.
That's it. That's enough of that. That's enough. Cut that up. It's
Oh, I think I need to clean out my ears now.
No, Mickey. Pull Mickey back on the screen. I'm so sorry. I was like, because here's the thing. How do you say in one sentence, everybody knows "Let's go, Brandon"? By now, if you don't know "Let's go, Brandon," it is like the conservative way of being like, I want to cuss somebody out, but I don't want to get in trouble. So I'm going to say some fake words like "Let's go, Brandon." But earlier in that same clip, he said F Anthony Fauci. Like, you already said it, brother. So why are you now going to say, instead of saying F Joe Biden, you're going to say "Let's go, Brandon"? Nomiki, what is wrong with some of these white folks on the conservative side over there?
It's supremacy. I mean, in real talk here. Obviously, this is aggressive and I have so many thoughts. Sorry. I have to get it collected because there's just a lot that's coming out. So first off, I saw on Twitter yesterday that in Detroit, where Kid Rock grew up, he actually grew up, he puts off this working class kind of, I'm an everyday guy. He actually grew up really wealthy. Shocker. Which leads to my next point, that they're tapping into white supremacy, which is not a shocker, but the spirit of white supremacy, the fact, you're making me wear a mask. The government is making me do things, making me pay taxes, making me take a vaccine. Why isn't the pandemic over? Whether you're Barry Weiss, angry that the pandemic's not over, or Bill Maher, done with it, or you're Kid Rock, who's trying to find a target for his inconvenience. We all know, working people in this country know, this isn't inconvenient. You go anywhere else in the world, which I have done in the last year. I went to Mexico, everyone's wearing a mask, everyone. On the street, there's no question. You go to Europe, everyone's wearing masks. There's no question about whether or not you should wear a mask, or there's always a little anti-vax community somewhere. But it is such a uniquely American libertarian / white supremacist way of thinking that is not just about taxes. It's about building a movement that resents government for telling them what to do and making their lives inconvenient because they're not used to being told what to do, because they get away with whatever they want.
And that is the essence of the whole thing. I could use that framing. It's actually a great frame to understand it, because that is the nature of the conversation with Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson that we just played. That is the nature of why they brought up Michael Eric Dyson. I don't know if you recall that clip from about 2 years ago at the debate when Michael Eric Dyson called Jordan Peterson a mean, bitter, angry white man. That was the nature of that situation, right? That is the framing. They are so used to getting away with anything and everything that if they have to consider your pronouns, if they have to go to your Twitter page and look up your pronouns, they think that they are oppressed.
Yes, exactly. It's like, you're so tough. This is oppression to you? Wait till you see what most Americans are dealing with.
That's right. That's right. I would venture to say that there's not a white conservative rich man who can live a year in the life of the people that they think that they're better than, and that they want to lecture about working harder. I guarantee you, Elon Musk could not live a year in a working class person's life. That said, I want to talk about solidarity, because behind all this is the need for us to transcend our normal way of organizing underneath the big tent. And this is what I mean. I don't mean the Democratic Party big tent. I mean all of the alliances that are necessary. Everybody has their own individual issue or a handful of issues. No one group of people represent the totality of all the political issues that have to be addressed in this country. Therefore, in order for some of us to win, we've got to unify with folks that don't look like us. They don't worship like us. They may not, whatever. We're going to be different. Talk to us about solidarity across those different silos.
I mean, intersectionality is a concept that we spew out a lot, but I don't think a lot of people really dig deep and understand. Intersectionality, it brings different folks together from different backgrounds and different races and ethnicities, but with that common thread of it's a class struggle. Ultimately, we know that the group of white supremacists, I'm just say it straight up, the white supremacists that are controlling this country are controlling it through our economy mainly. And when they can't control it through the economy, they use their economic means to control it through government and create all these wars, these culture wars to divide everybody, so that, of course, your energy is not focused on the big fights, but focused on petty little things between you, or made up things like the CRT fight, or, I'm sure we could find a million things in the progressive movement that we can fight. Or sometimes we get triggered by certain things that are legitimate, but may not be the big priority. And it's to drain our energy away from the big, big, big fights. I think what's different right now, and it's reassuring to see this, is that because the conditions are so stark for so many people and they've had it, when we couldn't pass an economic package that really relieves what people are facing right now, getting food on the table, being able to pay your rent, student loans, et cetera, $15 minimum wage. because we weren't able to pass something so basic as that, I think you're seeing workers across this country just fed up and they're quitting. And the inflation, everyone's talking. Larry Summers has his whole theory on inflation, but when you talk to Professor Richard Wolff, also an economist, or other economists that are progressive, they say, no, the inflation, a lot of it has to do with, employers jacking up their prices, whether it's shipping employers who have a monopoly and very little government oversight, or employers at, your local coffee shop who are jacking up their prices. And employees are seeing that, saying, wait, you're blaming it on us, that you have to pay us, and that's why the prices are going up? We quit. And that, I think, is the conditions have created a scenario where solidarity is the only option. So I look at solidarity in these moments and juxtapose it with Joe Rogan making comments like he has in the past, or Elon Musk, or of course, Jeff Bezos. I think the grand public is starting to get, these guys are full of you know what, and we have to work together. There's no way we can rely on government to save us from this. We have to use whatever power we have to fight back.
Absolutely. I want to bring in Dr. Carl Mack into the conversation. Because you said something there that I want to give him to chime in on before we get done in this first segment. You said they have us distracted from the real fights, which is them, the richest, the oligarchs, the people at the top. Dr. Mack, how is it that, first of all, good morning to you, and so glad to have you as always. It's something about conspiracies, and I'm thinking particularly about Robert Kennedy Jr., because I saw an article this morning saying that now his own wife is opposed to his conspiracy theories. What is it about conspiracy theories that get so many people to look at everything else except the obvious, which are the rich and powerful who literally control all the levers of power and are telling us to go back to school and go back to work in the middle of a pandemic?
Good morning to the both of you, Nokum and Ben. Good morning. Whenever you want to control a body, you have to control the mind. If I can control what you think, if I can keep you under a veil of ignorance, it is easy for me to control you. Now, when you're talking about all these issues, my love for history, one of the reasons I love history so much is because it helps you to think critically. And so when you begin to deny, all the things that you all are talking about, you're talking about things that happened, quote unquote, yesterday. But when you have an understanding of yesterday, you got a much clearer understanding about what's being told to you today and what the ramifications or implications of that are going to be. So, I just equated it to the fact that as long as we can stay into a society where people are not thinking critically, you can be led by the nose by any of these so-called influencers.
That's it. That's absolutely right. Nomiki, I was trying to text you. I was trying to hit you in the DMs to ask you, is your birthday public knowledge? If your birthday's public knowledge, I wanted to give you a treat this morning.
Thank you.
Connected to your birthday. Now, you don't have to say it on air because mine's not, mine is public knowledge. What is your birthday, if you don't mind me asking?
It's tomorrow, January 27th.
How about that? You can't get any better than that. Hey, Google, what happened tomorrow in Black history?
On January 27, 1919, Paul Revere Williams was enrolled at the University of Southern California in architectural engineering. In 1923, he became the first Black member of the American Institute of Architects. Overcoming racial prejudice, some of his most noted works are the Palm Springs Tennis Club, the world-famous Beverly Wilshire Hotel, Angelus Funeral Home, St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, and the Tudor Mansion in Pasadena, California, which was used in the TV series Batman. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Carl Mack.
Dr. Carl Mack.
That's fascinating. I've been to some of those places.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Let me tell you, there's something about... Go ahead, Brother Mack. No, you got it. Go ahead.
There was a famed African-American architect who designed those and so many more. I mean, just an incredible talent, Paul Revere Williams.
What I love about this calendar, BlackHeritageDays.com, is that every time I hear a date, that's relevant to my life is somehow connected to me. It's the strangest thing, Brother Mac, but it reminds me of what you say and what Malcolm X said, is that our job is to find ourselves in history. And that's why we do this, Nomiki. I wanted you to hear what happened in Black history on your birthday.
Thank you for that.
So Ben, I will tell you, I was surprised when you framed the question, what happened tomorrow in Black history, and it answered. I was actually surprised that it did. But anyway, very pleased.
Not a problem. Actually, well, you know, we tested it last night with my producer, because I wasn't sure either. When he asked it, yeah, and I'm like, it doesn't work like that, does it? And lo and behold, it does. That said, Dwayne, I want you to run what happened today in Black history, because this is what we're doing here. We're putting a focus and a light on Black history because, well, the rest of America is so terrified of critical race theory, we might as well give them some real history. And I want you to take a look at what happened today.
Ben, before we go there, you know, I got to thinking back again to this governor of Virginia. And now he's trying to put pressure on teachers about what they teach. And so I have to ask both you and Noquim. I want to ask
Nomiki. It's all right.
Nomiki, I'm sorry.
I'm used to Tory.
No, I'm so sorry.
It took me 3 years.
I got it now. So let's say 200 years from now. In 200 years, will we still be teaching about what happened at Pearl Harbor? Will we still be teaching about 9/11? 200 years from now.
Yeah.
So what they're saying to us is that based on what happened to us as a people, I'm talking about where they invoked, and excuse my Latin, but they imposed the doctrine, partus sequitur ventrum, which says the right of the womb. So in this case, when he wants to quote King and say, yes, we should be looking forward to that day when children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So are you telling me that somehow I should not know that the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, passed a law that says in order for me to ensure that an enslaved woman cannot sue for her freedom because as the slave owner, I impregnated her. And now she's trying to sue for her freedom and that of her child, which is my child. In order to prevent that lawsuit, I'm going to invoke this law. So are you telling me that I should not teach what happened? And that if I teach that, somehow I'm teaching hate.
That's right. That's right. Before we get to that, Nomiki, because we're coming up at the end of the half hour. First of all, thank you so much for joining us for Solidarity Wednesdays. As always, I will see you later on today in Solidarity. Please tell everyone how they can get up with you and support your show.
Well, thanks for having me. I love these conversations. They're like I said, it's like waking up with a intention, and I really love this. So we do Solidarity Wednesdays also on our show on YouTube. It's at YouTube, the Nomiki Show. If you just put that in, Nomiki, and we're on all the podcast platforms as well. And so we'll see you at 8 p.m. Eastern Wednesday on our channel on YouTube.
All right. That's what it is.
I will forever remember the pronunciation of your name. And when you have time, you got to tell us how in the world did your mom and daddy say, I like Nomiki.
It's very good. Firstborn Greek child. You're named after the father's mother. So it's Nomiki. Yeah.
Oh, Nomiki. See?
Nice. Well, now we got it. Now I think I got it, because I really be struggling. I know you just be allowing me to mess it up. Sometimes I hit it, and sometimes I mess it up.
I got it now.
Nomi is fine.
I got it, Nomiki.
When I was in kindergarten, my dad had a shirt printed out for me, like 5 of them, and I wore it every single day of my first week of kindergarten. And it was like how to pronounce my name for my teachers, obviously, not for the students. So,
well, that said, let's get ready to get out of here. I want to close with today in Black history. We have the full video of it. Dwayne, run us what happened today in Black history. And when we come back, we'll be back with Georgia Fort on the clock and the rest of the show, the rest of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show.
On January 26, 1943, Brigadier General Cherian Grace Cadoria was born in Louisiana. Cadoria served in the military for 29 years, retiring as the highest-ranked black woman in the armed forces. She was the first black woman director of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the first woman to command an all-male battalion. Cadoria's numerous decorations include 3 Bronze Stars, the Legion of Merit, and the Army Commendation Medal. Adapted from Black Heritage Day for Calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Karl Mack.